I'd like to welcome our keynote speaker, who has firsthand experience with the development of space systems over the last 30 years. He began his career in active duty in the Air Force in space systems engineering and acquisition, culminating as the director, Space Superiority Systems Directorate at the LA Air Force Base in El Segundo. Upon leaving the military, his experience was valued on the industry side at Parsons, ATK, Orbital ATK, and now Northrop Grumman, where he serves as Senior Director, Strategy and Business Development for Northrop Grumman Innovation Systems. His responsibilities are for strategy and business development for Air Force Space and Missile Systems Center, NASA Jet Propulsion Lab, other government agencies, aerospace industry vendors, and partners in the Los Angeles area. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Arnie Streland.
Thanks for this opportunity. On behalf of Northrop Grumman, thank you for everything you're doing, for what AMP is doing to help strengthen our regional economy, our regional aerospace industry. And thank you to all of you who are suppliers. Those of you who work with us today, that's awesome. We're glad to have you. Those who might want to work with us in the future, we'll talk more about how you can do that later on in this discussion. As I go into this, I'll tell you, just to start with, subcontractors, suppliers, are really the foundation of what we do in the aerospace industry. When you look at satellites, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but if you look at your average satellite, more than 50% of the content of that satellite is subcontracted. So no matter who the prime contractor is, on average, more than half the money spent on that satellite goes into the supply chain somewhere. So you all are foundational to our success. So what I'd like to do, if we go to the next slide, please, and Frank, if you could hit the video, I'd start with a little video here narrated by Christian Slater talking about Northrop Grumman and some of our recent achievements and historical achievements.
Remember when the next big thing really was big? Really, truly, epically big? So big, the world would literally stop just to get a glimpse of it. Boys and girls would dream endlessly about it. And history books all had to be rewritten for it. Makes the latest smartphones, search engines, and robot cars seem downright tiny in comparison, doesn't it? Well, most of the next big things we all know and love came from one place: America's aerospace industry. In fact, American aerospace was the birthplace of innovation. Real innovation. And you know what? It still is. Today, we're inventing the next big thing in unmanned vehicles. The next big thing in space telescopes. The next big thing in microscopically small things. And the next big thing of stuff we're not even allowed to talk about. This is what we do. Because when we break free of the bureaucratic shackles, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and radically advance human discovery, you're able to do something big, something really, truly, epically big. Build the next big thing of next big things.
Let's see, while we're pulling that up, what I'll talk to you about a little bit today, I'll give you a quick overview of Northrop Grumman. I'll spend a little bit of time, too, talking about our newest sector, our fourth sector, which is Northrop Grumman Innovation Systems. That's where I came from, Heritage Orbital ATK. Deepak mentioned about mergers and acquisitions going on. I'm on my third company in 4 years, and I haven't left my desk. So it's changed around me, which has been a fascinating thing to experience. So there's a lot of change, but I would say, from my point of view, that's all positive change, because as these companies come together, they bring unity, they bring strength to tackle some of the larger challenges, like you heard discussed in the video there. And with that, even though as we change, as I mentioned earlier, the foundation of what's important to us, the importance of our supply chain remains the same. So first two charts here really kind of build on some of the same messages that Deepak talked about. Those of you, I see some of you out there in the audience who share similar hairlines and hair color to me. And you all will remember when there was a lot more visible aerospace manufacturing here. Boeing had plants, Douglas had plants. I remember the Rockwell plant in El Segundo. There was a lot more visible manufacturing, and those places have closed down. There was a downturn in the 90s, and if you weren't really following what's going on, you think, gosh, aerospace isn't a big part of the Southern California or the larger California economy. And as Deepak indicated earlier, it really is. These are some of the, same similar statistics that he highlighted, but 203,000 direct jobs created in the California aerospace market, a significant, and I think 85,000 of those just in Los Angeles County alone. We are, if we go to the next slide, talks more about California, the percentage of our impact on California. We have, just look at, this now looks at the global aerospace industry. So just what we're doing here, what you all are doing here in California is 9% of the world's aerospace industry. California is the, believe the second largest aerospace employer, state for aerospace employment, second only to Virginia. So there's a huge positive message from what's going on. So in many ways, what's happened, aerospace really hasn't lagged, it's transformed. And in many of the new space things that you all have heard about, and while more traditional, I would say more traditional employers like Northrop Grumman, like Boeing, have just continued to expand and grow and make significant economic contributions. And the one stat I want to highlight here too before we go on is aerospace contributes as much to the California economy as the combination of the film industry and the agriculture industry. So you ask the average person, what do you think of California? It's film, depending on where you live, film and agriculture are big things, but aerospace is equal to both of those combined. So that's significant. So with that, let's focus on Northrop Grumman. Here are the kind of the big pictures. We're in 25 countries around the world. $25 billion in sales, 85,000 employees company-wide. And from the pictures there, you can see we're in a variety of things. Aircraft, spacecraft, cyber systems, you name it, we're involved in that somehow. This takes a look at the sectors at a glance. So there are 4 sectors in Northrop Grumman, where the newest part of that is Northrop Grumman Innovation Systems. All of this was Heritage Orbital ATK. And if you want to understand how that, the purchase went, Northrop Grumman paid $9 billion to acquire Orbital ATK, lock, stock, and barrel. We became part of Northrop on 7 June. And on that day, out of 15,000 employees, 5 lost their jobs, and 1 person got a new boss. So we really did, no kidding, move lock, stock, and barrel into, as an entire entity into Northrop Grumman. And of those 5 people that lost their jobs, most of them were corporate officers who cashed out their options and moved on, so don't feel bad for them. They're doing just fine. And they're doing great. But just a quick look. So aerospace systems, aircraft, ISR systems, the most of what you see here in Southern California is part of Northrop Grumman Aerospace Systems. Space Park, spacecraft manufacturing in Space Park, the manufacturing, aircraft manufacturing in Palmdale, that's all part of aerospace systems. I'll tell you more about innovation systems, some more in a few slides. Northrop Grumman Mission Systems, primarily a lot of ground systems, but also radars. So if you think of the radars in systems like the F-35, sensor suites like that, that comes from Northrop Grumman Mission Systems. Also have a lot of missile defense, maritime, a lot of things, capabilities related to acquiring information and then being able, gathering the information and then sharing it with the right folks. And then technology services, logistics, maintenance, IT, working with mostly our DoD government customers to deploy and maintain the systems they need to operate. And if you put it all together, I think this is a great slide because the balance of what we do, you take all that together and we're preserving freedom through our roles across all the armed forces, giving our troops the best capability that's available, and advancing human discovery. And many of you have seen the James Webb, you've seen pictures of the James Webb Space Telescope that's going through final assembly down the road here in Space Park. On a smaller scale, our TESS Planet Finder spacecraft that carries a payload built by Johns Hopkins was launched earlier this year, and it's just started its mission looking for exoplanets, which is basically what they do is stare at stars and look for little variations in the intensity of that star that could be generated by a planet coming across the face of that star. And so very much smaller scale than James Webb, but still very sophisticated and very important a contribution of our understanding of what's going on around us. Looking here at at the picture of Northrop Grumman in California, you can see where we are, our engagement with universities, our education partnerships. We very much believe in investing in the communities that we live in, we operate in. We very much understand the message that Deepak was talking about earlier, the importance of education, an educated workforce, a training for folks for the unique skills we have, because it's no longer about just getting someone right out of high school on the assembly line and teaching them a few basic skills. It's advanced manufacturing capabilities. It's a lot of highly skilled employees that we need to make our systems work. One thing I'll highlight here, this slide was made before the 7th of June. So I'll highlight a little bit our presence in California, the Northrop Grumman Innovation Systems. And we are starting Santa Barbara. We do solar arrays and deployable structures, so they provide electric power to spacecraft. And our solar arrays are everywhere today, from the International Space Station to the surface of Mars. In Northridge, our defense electronics group does missile warning systems for aircraft. So you think about aircraft, helicopters, and such moving into harm's way. If someone fires a missile at them, there's systems on the aircraft to alert the crew and give them the opportunity to take defensive measures. That's what we do in Northridge. In Commerce, we build propulsion tanks for spacecraft, which you think, geez, a fuel tank, how complex can that be? It's a fuel tank that has to last anywhere from 10 to 40 years and carefully manage fuel in a zero-gravity environment. That's a challenging thing. And down in San Diego, our composites group does precision composite work for aircraft and spacecraft. An example of that, if you see a picture of the Hubble Space Telescope, the structure that holds the mirrors, of the James Webb Telescope, the structure that holds all those mirrors was made in San Diego. So we'll go to the next slide here. Talk a little bit more about innovation systems. We maintain the same 3-group structure that we did in Orbital ATK. Our flight systems group does primarily launch vehicles, propulsion systems, and aerospace systems. So we do smaller launch vehicles like our Pegasus air launch vehicle, which was actually 32 years ago now, the world's first privately funded, privately developed launch vehicle. So we were into private space launch before Twitter. We also do propulsion systems, mostly solid rocket motors, everything from small missiles used by the Army to the large motors that large solid rocket motors that help power the space shuttle. We also support ground-based missile defense, strategic missiles, a wide variety of customers. Aerospace structures, you heard about composites in aircraft manufacturing. Anything done by the Department of Defense that has composites, as well as Boeing for their 787 and Airbus for their A350, we manufacture. Our Defense Systems Group is the nation's largest bullet supplier to the Department of Defense. We also do warheads, fuses, a variety of things like that. And the Space Systems Group, where I'm from, does everything, does satellite systems for both the DoD and NASA, and space components, and that's what I talked about earlier, the tanks, solar arrays, heat pipes, things that help manage thermal control of the satellite, a wide variety of mechanical components that go into there. And it's the Space Systems Group and our Defense Group that have really the locations here in Southern California. I'll note, too, what we primarily do in Space Systems Group from a satellite side. We do commercial ComSats, but our satellites for research and defense are primarily smaller satellites. We are not the CubeSat providers, but I would say the average satellite we build is somewhere around the size of this podium or smaller. And since we're at a university, I can say, too, a lot of what we do is about the size of a college dorm fridge, so you can all relate to that. So we'll talk a little bit here about supplier engagement. And what I also want to highlight as we get into this is some other trends that we're seeing. Deepak hit on a couple of those already, but let's just focus on the importance of space for a minute. Space is foundational, and I learned this a long time ago in the Air Force, is foundational to everything the Department of Defense does as far as defending this nation. We still are the only country that can project power anywhere on, above, or below the surface of the earth or undersea. We're the only nation that can do that. Space makes all of that possible. And our adversaries and would-be adversaries understand that. They saw that was made highly relevant in 1991 when Desert Storm happened and our forces went up against the Iraqi army with a lot of Soviet equipment and with stunning quick results. One supplier note about that is the use of GPS. When I first got into the Air Force in 1986, a GPS receiver was a backpack. It was a big honking thing you had to strap on your back, and every Army company and companies about 100 soldiers had one of those per company. And that was vital, and that was the guy who knew where you were going. That was 1986. Fast forward 5 years, 1991, everyone's got handheld GPS, and the military suppliers couldn't keep up with supplying all the needs of the Army, so the Army started buying from commercial folks like Garmin. And even those supply chains couldn't keep up with the need. So you actually had guys in Desert Storm writing home, "Dear Mom, please send brownies and Garmin." And so when it came time for General Schwarzkopf's left hook to outflank the Iraqi army, you literally had, in some cases, Big Sarge and his tank crew loaded up on their M1 with a receiver that Mom or their wife bought at the West Marine 2 weeks ago and FedExed out to them so they could have it. It's amazing how that whole supply chain works. But now fast forward, everyone's seen that, so now the space systems we have don't just have to work and provide that same level of capability. They have to work in an environment where adversaries are actively trying to deny that capability, whether that's attacking the spacecraft directly, attacking the cyber networks that are involved with the spacecraft. There are threats to it, so building the same systems that you did 10, 15 years ago to operate in the future just won't work. So we talk about what's the supplier's role in all that. We're heavy in, you can see here from the charts, we have a lot of involvement with suppliers. We have a significant role here. This just gives you a shot of Los Angeles County, but if you took that for other counties and other parts of the state, you can see we are very much engaged and very much rely on our suppliers. And I mentioned earlier, this is a good place to talk about the role of suppliers in space, and let me give you an example. If you can look behind you on our Northrop Grumman banner there's a picture of a satellite on the top, and that is the Advanced Extremely High Frequency spacecraft. If you Google that, you'll learn a couple of things. First, that satellite is part of a network of 4 satellites designed to provide highly secure communications. So read that as communications that will still work when someone's actively trying to jam you, to our national command authorities to connect them to the troops in the field. You'll also learn that satellite is made by Lockheed Martin. They're the prime contractor. Now, why do we have that on a Northrop Grumman banner? That's because more than half the money that goes into the satellite goes into suppliers. We at Northrop Grumman supply all the radios and antennas, so the heart of that satellite's communications payload is all made here in Space Park. The propulsion tanks that provide the fuel for that satellite are made in Commerce, and all the honeycomb composite structures that go into the structure of that satellite are made in San Diego. So you can see that that's just an example of when we say more than 50% of most satellite programs are subcontracted. There's a great example for you. So how to get involved with us, and so spoiler alert, I'll go through this, but there's a website link at the end that tells you all about what we're doing, about how to work with us, and we are, I'll say from Northrop Grumman Innovation Systems, we are integrating into the larger Northrop Grumman supplier outreach program. So you can go to the OASIS website, get the same information there, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But the biggest thing, if you're looking to want to engage with us, is first, what we're really looking for is be familiar with Northrop Grumman, be familiar with our products and requirements. So do some of your homework, learn what we do, and see how you can help, and some things to highlight. We are very interested in innovation, but not for innovation's sake. And as an example of that, we had a spacecraft structure that's actually a ring made out of machined aluminum, big honking old school piece of machined aluminum. We had a number of opportunities to use advanced manufacturing techniques for that. We passed on all of them because there was no value to be made. That didn't change our business case for the spacecraft. It didn't make it more likely that we could sell that to more customers. Now, we have another opportunity where we're looking at advanced manufacturing, and when our supplier came to us and said, hey, we can use advanced manufacturing techniques to improve this component for you, everyone's universal response across the table was, wow, we've got to do that. Because we realized that in those cases, in that case, that could make an enormous difference to the product, to our capability, to our cost, to our schedule. So we will always listen to new ideas about how to do things, but what we're really looking for is that context. You have a great idea, how can that help us to make existing products better, help us to make future products, help us improve our business case. So this is a little bit more too about this. Understand what we're doing, how we fit in the market. Maybe your idea is, hey, here's what your competitor's doing. Have you thought about this? Logistics and timing is a big thing too. So how does our supply chain, we rely on timeliness of supply chains to support our programs. In many cases, we're in the same situation as a lot of manufacturers. We don't like carrying a whole bunch of inventory in our facility, so we're looking for just-in-time or kind of just-in-time delivery opportunities. We're looking for how we can keep that active supply chain going, your ability to surge as our customers surge. I'll give you, and we live this every day. So for example, the components we build for Airbus have to, they're made in Clearfield, Utah, which is just north of Salt Lake City, and they have to be in Toulouse, France, and Bremen, Germany for final assembly. So our whole planning process needs to not just focus on manufacturing those parts, but getting them crated up, containerized up to the East Coast, shipped through multi modes of freight to get there on time. So all those considerations are important. The other thing too I want to hit on, Deepak mentioned earlier, and this goes for research, cybersecurity. If you are a supplier to us, if you're talking about mechanical components, we are interested in basic cybersecurity, like if we give you information, is it on your computer system properly protected? If you're an electronic component supplier, because so many electronics are foreign sourced, we have requirements placed on us from our customers that in many cases will flow to you to make sure that when we do bring in foreign sourced parts, that we're able to justify to ourselves and to our own customers that we have properly protected and ensured security. Just some final thoughts here. So what works? Credibility. If you're coming to us for the first time, experience working with others and what you've done, that helps. Demonstrated quality. We have, I work in a small engineering office in El Segundo, California, but a big part of what we do is supplier management, supplier engagement, making sure we work with suppliers. I can tell you we're dealing with some issues now where we have suppliers running behind, and that impacts everything of what we're doing on certain programs. If we can't get our components in time and are the right quality, that impacts everything we're doing. Proven performance is what we're looking for, and you can reach out to us, come see us here at conferences and trade fairs. Perseverance, be persistent. It might not be, when you come to talk to us, it might not be an opportunity right now, but there might be something in the future. So stay engaged with us, follow what we're doing, follow as our programs evolve, and so today there might not be something. 6 months from now, you could be the people we need to win the next big program. And know the system. That's not only know our company, but know how to work with us. And which gets us to the last slide, which is some resources you can look at. NorthropGrumman.com gives you a good overview of who we are and what we're doing. You can follow us on social media. If you've done business before with Northrop Grumman, you know about our Oasis site. The link down here will take you to that site, and you'll see a box there, doing business with Heritage Orbital ATK. There's actually a box in the upper right-hand corner to click on. A couple of things I want to highlight that for you. If any of you are current suppliers, you should have gotten a supplier letter telling you about what the transition means, how you get paid, invoiced, and everything like that. There are also good resources there for supplier points of contact if you have any other questions. And as you'll see, that right now we're in the process of integrating, and you'll see that highlighted from the website. But over time, and I think that'll be months versus years, you'll see Oasis just becomes the seamless, nonstop place for you to reach into our company anywhere you want to go. So that's it. The last thing I'll say, as the largest aerospace manufacturer and employer in California, we continue to grow, and we're looking to hire. We have 400 jobs, so if you're interested, we never want to snipe good employees from our suppliers, because you guys are valuable to us too. But if you have, if you, friends, family are interested, go to northropgrumman.com, look under careers. If any of you out there know already trained aerospace engineers with top secret security clearances, skip all that, just see me. afterwards. I'll give you my card because we're selfish. We want first dibs on you because it's a growing industry. People are hiring. This is a great industry to be in and a great time to be in the industry. There's a lot of growth, a lot of opportunity, and the impact of that opportunity from, like we said in the chart, from defending our nation against a very increasingly threatening environment to leading human discovery. This is an exciting time, a great place. It's a great place to be. It's always a great place to be in Southern California, but a great time and place to be in this industry. So with that, thanks again to AMP for this opportunity, and we look forward to continued long-term relationship with AMP and with all of you, and I'll be happy to take questions. Oh, so this is an easy one. Where's Innovation Systems headquartered? We're headquartered in Dulles, Virginia. If you're familiar, if you've ever flown into Dulles Airport, just get on 28 and go north and look for the Warp Drive off-ramp. And just give you an idea, too, that's where we're headquartered. Our kind of centers of gravity for satellite manufacturing are in Dulles, Virginia, and Gilbert, Arizona. Our centers of gravity for launch vehicle and propulsion manufacturing are in Chandler, Arizona, and in the Salt Lake City area. We've got multiple sites there where we do a lot of our motor work. How do you ensure quality while dealing with so many different suppliers? That's a great question. So, and it involves our entire supply chain. First, what we'll do is we have quality standards. We have internal corporate quality standards, which we will flow to some degree, depending on the nature of the program, to our various suppliers. And we have supplier reps, manufacturing engineers who will, depending on the nature of the program, periodically visit to check progress, to see how make sure that our suppliers are executing to those standards, being held to those standards. In some cases, we have full-time, depending on the supplier, we may have full-time reps there. So that's, it really starts with the quality procedures we flow down through our subcontracts and that process with our engineers to work with you to ensure that quality standard is made and maintained throughout the program. How important is real-time quality data? I would say that that depends on the program. In many cases, we're not, in the manufacturing scale that we're doing, it's not necessary that we have real-time quality data. We need timely quality data in the supply chain. So it is, and that's something that we also make clear when we flow those subcontract requirements to you, what we need and at what pace we need it. So, anything else?
That it?
All right.
All right.
All right, thanks for your questions. Thanks for the opportunity.